or the restriction provided in 169(2)(d). The third tax credit is under section 65E for the existing companies investing in expansion of plant and machinery, and the conditions are that the scope has been extended to corporate dairy farming and expansion of plant and machinery, undertaking a new project that would also qualify, and same facility is here. The tax credit can be adjusted against minimum tax liability and final tax liability. In case of a new project, however, the tax credit will be allowed 100% of the tax payable where separate accounts are maintained for the existing and the new project. Separate books are maintained and separate results can be computed. And where separate books are not maintained, then the credit will be allowed on proportionate basis. So these were the three type of tax credits extended to the corporate sector. Now, there are some certain other amendments in the corporate taxation. Exploration companies, there is a long outstanding litigation between the tax department and the taxpayers, the E&P companies, on the applicability of tax rate, and it has been provided that if the companies agree to pay 40% of profit and gains net of royalty and withdraw their appeals and the pending cases, then there is an option for them. How far the E&P companies will basically benefit of that or will go for this option, yet to be seen. Then, in the case of banking companies, dividend is now provided that the dividend received from by a banking company from money market and income fund would be charged to tax at 25% for 2013 and 35% in the 2014 and onwards. There is an interesting SRO 561 issued in May, which required the banks to pay at least 50% of their advance tax liability by 15 June if the tax payable is likely to be more than on the basis otherwise provided in the law. That still continues. There was an interpretational issue that if a branch remit its profit from Pakistan to its head office, what is the treatment? Now that has been clarified that remittance of after-tax profit of a branch treated as dividend declared to be Pakistan, it will be Pakistan source income. The issue was that the relevant section of 101 did not have the appropriate amendment, and there was an argument going on that can such dividend be treated as a Pakistan source income and liable to tax in Pakistan or not. That has now been clarified. Exemptions from withholding tax on dividend profit debt to the group companies have been entitled. Where there are group reliefs available, then their intercompany dividend was not chargeable to tax, but there was a withholding tax requirement that has been now taken care of, and there will be no withholding tax on the intercompany dividend and on the profit on debt. But yet, for the purpose of profit of debt, I think still an amendment is required for non-taxable status. That has not been made. On the corporate taxation, insurance companies, in the case of insurance companies, disposal of listed securities have been made. There have been certain adjustments, amendments in the tax rates that has been tabulated here. Since it's not applicable to all, so I just, for the purpose of information, I have tabulated and I move on. Capital gain on taxation on immovable property. This is the new amendment. Conceptually, generally considered to be against the spirit of the income tax ordinance, because earlier immovable property was excluded from the definition of capital asset. Now that exclusion have been removed, thereby bringing the immovable property within the definition of capital gains. And consequently, any gain on sale of immovable property liable to tax depending on the holding period. If it is sold within 1 year of acquisition or purchase, the tax rate will be 10%, and if it is between 1 to 2 years, the tax rate will be 5%. Beyond 2 years, there will be no tax. Now, no doubt, the gain on sale of immovable property was outside the scope of the income tax ordinance. But there were the situations where a person was engaged in the trading of the properties, then the resultant profit was taxable as business income, being in the nature of adventure in trade. Now, this amendment raises two questions. Number one, does the Federation have powers after the 18th Amendment to impose tax on gain of immovable property? And the second is that after this amendment, if someone is engaged in the trading of the immovable property, will he or she be liable to tax on the gain at 10% or as a business income at the effective tax rate? So these are the two issues, because one can take a position that after this particular amendment, now the immovable properties are outside the ambit of business income. So these are the two questions need to be addressed. Sorry. Next is capital gain tax on listed securities. The Finance Amendment Ordinance, in fact, brought an amnesty for the investors who invest in the listed securities through stock exchanges, and the conditions were, if the investment is made prior to 24th April 2012, i.e. prior to the promulgation of the Finance Amendment Ordinance, and the investment is held for 45 days until 30th of day of June, and a statement of investment is duly filed along with the return of income and wealth statement for tax year, then no question will be asked about the source. So that provision of the Finance Amendment Ordinance have been made part of law through the finance bill, or is proposed to be made part of law through the finance bill, and will be, part of the income tax ordinance. Strictly speaking, this is a whitening scheme. One can say, and the one argument is that this is to encourage investment in capital market. How far that will be helpful and attract for investment, yet to be seen. Yes, now I will talk of the provisions relating to the withholding tax and final tax regime and normal tax regime. There is one amendment in sections 148, 151 and so on. The earlier provisions were that the particular payment receipt qualify as a final tax regime if the tax has been deducted or collected. So in view of these expressions or the wordings, there have been different interpretations that to what extent income would qualify as a final tax regime, in the final tax regime, where tax has not been deducted, although it was deductible, but it has not been deducted, or it was collectible, but for any reason it was not collected. Whether such receipt shall still qualify as to be taxed under the final tax regime or not. So this is a clarificatory nature of amendment. Now the two terms have been replaced with, or proposed to be replaced with, collectibles or deductibles.